I think the first thing is to have a positive attitude to the media. I think that's the key thing. You know, a lot of times players will come into situations with a preconceived idea about the media that, you know, they're going to be tripped up, or they are somehow going to write negatively about these young players. And in the majority of cases, that simply isn't going to happen. In terms of the specific skills, we start out talking about the use of the voice and how we perhaps modulate our voice a little more when we're doing media, and why that's important. Because we want people to be interested and engaged by what we're saying. We also talk about eye contact, the importance of keeping eye contact with the person that you're talking to in order, again, to engage them. And then beyond that, when we talk about focusing on what people are saying, it's part of the process is to encourage them to give longer answers and to perhaps provide a few details that they wouldn't necessarily think of, but which can be quite valuable for people covering tennis and also talking to athletes. Examples of this, and this is one I always use, would be Vladimir Volchkov, who some people may remember was a semi-finalist, rather out of the blue in fact, at Wimbledon. And he was in a mix with some very, very high-profile players. He ended up, I think, losing to Pete Sampras in those semi-finals. And nobody knew anything about him at all. But the two things that he talked about when he did his media were that he'd seen the film Gladiator 12 times, and that he had to come through qualifying, and so he had been in London much longer than he expected to be, and he'd run out of clean shorts, and he had to borrow a pair of shorts. Now, these are small details which we wouldn't necessarily mention, and we certainly wouldn't get asked about when we do an interview, because there's no way the journalist would know them. So it's about knowing that it's okay to talk about those things, and actually, you know, that led to him being called the Gladiator by the UK papers, and allowed people at home to feel a connection with him and to get a little bit of an insight into some of the realities of being a tennis player. And instead of being this distant figure who they watched on the court, perhaps playing someone that they'd heard of, or someone with a much higher profile, he was somebody they felt a personal connection with, someone they could identify with. Whenever you're talking to somebody and meeting somebody new, you should go in there trying to make a favourable impression, because essentially that's what we're doing when we do media. We're meeting a lot of people for the first time. Some players are naturally outgoing and engaging and want to reach out to people and are chatty, and that's a facet of their personalities. Others are, you know, a little quieter, a little shyer. It's not necessarily about being you know, a huge, loud personality. It's sometimes just about bringing the best possible aspects of yourself out. And so it's about making a favourable first impression with your body language, smiling, using eye contact, and all of those skills that perhaps you tend to learn in the workplace as you go on, but which they haven't perhaps developed yet.